Hello and welcome back to another VBA tutorial. So we've seen in a couple videos, more specifically the ones that are related to Excel, we saw that we can take different Excel objects and we can paste them into an Outlook email. And so that was kind of our introduction to the whole Outlook object model. And so this is an object model that, at least for the most part, is very useful when it comes to working with emails and things along that nature. And so I thought it would make sense to kind of start a series where we discuss the Outlook object model. And so this is going to be the first video in this series. And in this particular video, we are going to be covering the namespace object. And so the namespace object is kind of the formal definition, at least the way that Microsoft describes it, is it's kind of this abstract storage system. And so this is kind of almost like the highest level we can go inside of our object model. I mean, we can technically go one level higher, which is the application itself. But once we've gone to that application, to go to the next level, we would more than likely run into the namespace object level. And so from here, we're basically grabbing that storage system, and then we can go and access the different components that belong to it. And you'll see that there are a lot of different kind of objects we can work with. We can work with folders, we can work with accounts, we can work with Outlook items. And so it's a little bit different than what we've maybe seen in previous object models where, for example, if I wanted to work with a PowerPoint presentation, I would go to the presentation, I could then go to the slide, and then I can go to the shape that was in that slide. You're going to find with the Outlook model, a lot of times we can access certain information without having to dig through the hierarchy in a sense. And so it'll take a little bit to understand at first, but hopefully once you start playing around with it, you're going to look at it and be like, oh, okay, now that I see kind of how it's structured, it's not as complicated as I was thinking it was. So with that being said, let's just jump into the actual code and start writing some stuff. And so normally, just like any other Office application, you do want to make sure that you enable your developer tab. So you would just go to Files, go to Options, and then you can go down here to Customize Ribbon. And then you can just check that box, and then that will enable your developer tab. Once you're here, you can go into your Visual Basic editor. And this is, again, where also things change a little bit. With the Outlook application, it's very similar, I would kind of say more towards like the Word application. You'll notice that there's kind of this Outlook personal macro workbook in a sense where it's this project module and you insert all of your modules into this project. And so this is just going to be inside of your Outlook application. There is only one application, and for the most part, you're not going to be opening multiple instances of an Outlook folder or something like that. Where in Excel, you can have multiple workbooks and you can have different projects in those workbooks. You're not going to be seeing that more than likely with your Outlook projects and stuff like that. Everything's going to kind of be located in one place. Now, there's kind of pros and cons to that, but probably one of the best things about it is, well, everything's centralized. And so normally it's a lot easier to find some stuff. Now, once you're here, you will go over to your Project Explorer like we've done in other videos, and then it's just normally like what we would usually do, which is just insert a module, and then we can start typing. Now, because we are inside of the Outlook application itself, we don't have to enable the Outlook object library because it's assuming that we want to work with that library since we're in that application. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll create a new subroutine. We're going to call it work namespace, or we'll give it something named like work with namespace. And once we're here, we need to declare a couple object variables just like everything else. Now, we're going to be seeing that we're going to actually be working with the namespace object, and we're going to be accessing some objects that are right below the namespace component, or at least right alongside with it. And those two are going to be the count and a contact item. And so with those two in mind, that will kind of guide us when we're actually declaring our variables. And so we'll declare object variables. The first one will be the Outlook app itself. Now, technically, I don't have to declare this one, but for demonstration purposes, I want you guys to kind of see what it would look like. And then we're going to declare our Outlook namespace. We'll just keep it name for simplicity. that will be a namespace object. So again, that kind of abstract root storage system. And then we're going to work with an Outlook account object. And so this will be an account object. So you'll see with accounts that you can have things that are the current user, the profile name. You can look at, oh God, what is it? If the person's online or offline, things along that nature, and kind of see what's really available. And then the final thing is we're going to be actually working with a contact object. So this is kind of like a contact inside of your Outlook. And so that will be a contact item object. And now that we've done this, we need to grab the namespace object. And so from here, there's kind of different ways you can do it. Actually for just simplicity's sake, let me just get rid of that. We'll just go over that. But let's just grab the namespace object. So we'll grab the namespace object. There's only one, so that makes it kind of easy. So we're going to set our Outlook namespace object variable to our application object. We're going to call the get namespace method, and then this will take in a string which represents that namespace. And so I'm going to put in type, so I guess that's the name of the parameter, and then it's going to be MAPI. Don't ask what it stands for, I'm not sure, but this is the name of that Outlook namespace. And once you've done that, now we can start printing some details about our namespace. So we're going to say print some details about our namespace. And so the first thing is maybe let's just grab the current user. Who is the current user inside of this namespace? Well, it should be me, I would hope. Otherwise, there's a bigger issue at hand. So we'll grab the user, and we'll just do a debug print Outlook name. And then from here, we'll just grab the current user property. And so if I run this, you can see it's just my email address. So that is saying that I belong as the current user. And sometimes it returns different information. So if you're working on like a work version of this, it might return something different. But if you're doing your personal one, it's just going to more than likely return your email address. And then we can grab the profile name. It's very similar, but it is slightly different. You'll see in a second. And so we'll say current profile name. So this one is just returning, one sec. This one's just returning the current profile name, which is basically just Outlook itself. I don't really, to me, that's kind of misleading because I would say like, oh, current profile name, like, is that mine or whatever? But I guess they kind of define it as the actual like profile of Outlook itself. Again, kind of weird, but regardless at this point. We can also check if the namespace is offline, for example. So I kind of say it's kind of answering the question, are we offline or something like that? And you'll see that the offline property can actually be found with other Outlook objects as well. So things like users and things like that. And so that makes sense. So it's saying false because I am currently online. So that should be coming back as false. And then from here, we can also take a look at kind of what this object class is. And so if you want, you could say, okay, well, debug print, Outlook name, and then I want the class property. And this comes back with 1, which, let me see. I have it here somewhere, class. I can't remember what 1 was again. Oh, geez, there's a ton. It's just telling you it's a namespace object. So it's just returning that it's basically telling you what this object is, and it's telling you that it's a namespace object. So kind of useful if you're not really sure what kind of object you're working with. And you can always use the Outlook property, a class, in order to find that. And you can leverage that obviously with statements and if statements and things like that, kind of in a sense. So I would say, what class object are we? That's kind of how I would think about that. We can also look at our Exchange connection mode. So we can grab the connection to our namespace. I'm going to put this up a little bit. So here it would be a debug print, and then it would be OLOOK name, and then it would be exchange connection mode. And with this one, what does it come back with? 700. If I remember that one, that is Outlook cached connected full. So the account is using cached exchange mode on a local area network or a fast connection with the exchange server. Again, if you're a developer, you probably have a better idea of what that means, but you can always look here too. Why is it doing that? Where is it? Connection mode. So it's just telling you what the kind of to an exchange. So basically, it's telling you if it's connected to an exchange server, and if so, the connection mode, basically. So it's by basically returning something, it is saying it's connected to an exchange server, and then it's telling us what kind of connection it is. That's kind of how we need to think about it. Okay, and then we can also get the server name. So this is the name of our server. So we can do debug print Outlook name, and then we can do the exchange mailbox server name, and then I'll also get the server version. Perfect, Outlook, and then server version. Okay. And so this is the name of our particular exchange mailbox server, and then this is the version. This one right here is the major version. This is the minor version, the build number, and the revision. So the major version is 15, minor version is 20. And then this is the server name itself. So it's basically just a URL. I think if I put this, I've never actually tried it, to be honest, but we can always try. So it does prompt you to log on. So I'm assuming you could probably just log in with that URL if you wanted to. Not really sure kind of why you'd want to do that necessarily, but there is kind of a mechanism to do that. So now that we've seen that, let's kind of move on to some different objects that exist within our namespace. And so one of the most common ones is folders. We want to work with a folder object inside of our particular namespace. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start declaring more variables, because that's always fun. This one will be a folder object, and then what we'll do is we'll say for each folder in OLOOK name dot folders next, and then I'll say debug print. I am going to put just some dashes so I can keep my sanity and make sure I can read everything. And then we'll do debug print, and we'll just do the folder name. I have another video where we'll go more in depth about folders. So loop through each folder in the namespace. I'm going to clear all that out. And so there's only one. It's just my current inbox, basically. But if I had more, there could potentially be more. So you could have, if you have multiple accounts, like I used to have my Gmail account synced with my Outlook, so then it would return more than one, obviously. So that's looping through the folders. We can also loop through all the accounts in the namespace. There should only be one. Should just be mine. So loop through all the accounts in the namespace. And so I'm just going to leverage this one and modify some stuff. So here I'm going to change that to OLOOK account. And then here I'm going to call this, did I already declare it up there, I think? Oh, yeah, I did. My bad, I don't think I need to do that. That's the problem, is I don't know why. Apparently I didn't declare that one. Okay, so for each OLOOK account in OLOOK name dot accounts, and then we'll just print some details about it. So we'll say OLOOK account dot username debug print OLOOK account dot current user, We can get some other stuff like the display name. Control, we'll do the display name. Control J, we'll do the account type. So let's see what we get back with this. It's almost identical. So here's the username. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. Username, current user, display name, and then our account type. 0 just means an Exchange account. That's all. So select and delete all that. We can also loop through all the categories in the namespace if you wanted to. So loop through all the categories in the namespace. And for this one, I don't think I actually declared it, so we'll just call it OLOOK category. Category as a category object. And then we'll say for each OLOOK category in OLOOK namespace, categories collection, next. And then again, I'm just going to copy some of this and leverage it. We'll take OLOOK control, and then I want the category one, and then I want the name of that category, and then I want, whoa, not like that, debug print OLOOK tab, not cab, and then I'll get the color of that category. So the category is basically, if you go here, you want to categorize it, you can see all the categories that we have and the name of those categories. So it comes in handy sometimes. Maybe if you want to see a particular email belongs to a category, first you got to get the category object, and then you can leverage that to see if that email belongs to that category or something like that. And so it just prints out all the categories. So there's a red, my Gmail when I used to have it, my blue category, all that kind of stuff. And then the color, it just returns a number which represents that color. So very useful. I'm going to delete that. And then we're going to go on to our final example, which is grabbing a contact. And then we'll just do something fun, which is like dialing that contact. So to grab a contact, it's very simple, actually. It's not as complicated as you would think. So we can set an OLOOK contact object, the one that we declared up here. And that's just a contact item. We'll go into our namespace. I'll get my default folder, and we'll see that there's multiple folders here. Now I want my contacts folder because this has all my contacts. So I'm going to grab my contacts folder. I'm going to call the items property because we've used this one before. And then I can just pass through the name of my particular contact. Well, I have a contact named April. And so if I wanted to, I could then dial April. And so it's basically going here, so down here, and it would be basically contacting one of them and be using the dial method, basically. That's how we would need to think about it. And so now we can dial the contact. And so I don't have it set up, so it will kind of come back with this box that will say like, oh, try to, try to dial them. I don't have it set up, so it's not going to do anything. But all you do is you call the namespace, you call the dial method, and then what you'll see is it just requires a contact item. That's all. And so if I run this, oh, so it brings up this little box, and it would just be the phone number, the name of the contact, and then you can start the call if you wanted to. Now, I don't have it set up, so it's not going to work, but if you wanted to, that's how the process would look. So with that being said, that actually does complete this tutorial. Again, it was more kind of just an introduction to the namespace. We're not going to work with it too much. Usually the namespace is kind of the access to something else that we want to work with. But it's good to know just how it works, some of their properties, some of the methods, and seeing how we can leverage that to kind of get to that next component. That's kind of how I like to think about it. So there's not a ton I would really necessarily use for the namespace. I think it's just getting more information about the actual session itself, and then trying to get maybe some of the objects that we would want to work with down the road. So if you have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. Definitely will try to answer them if I can. Also, if you could make sure to like the video, we always appreciate the support. And if you're not already, please make sure to subscribe to the channel so that way you get regular updates as we release new videos. So thanks again for watching, everybody. In the next video, we are going to be working with fun. We're going to be working with folders. So we'll see you in the next video.